You're on.
Thank you, Nick.
You're on now.
Am I on?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay,
you
thank you,
crushed
Nick.
it.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to GameSpot Cross Kind of Funny. My name's Colin. This is Nick, and we're joined by the illustrious Lorne Lanning of Oddworld fame.
Thanks for having me,
Thank
guys.
you
Going on,
for
man?
being here.
Good to see you.
Great
Good
to
to
see
see
you.
you coming back.
Thank you so much. All right, so here's the thing, Nick.
Yes.
We had Lorne Lanning at our apartment
I recall.
for the Kind of Funny HQ.
Yes.
And I was in Iceland, I think, for some reason.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you weren't there.
Yeah.
Oh, you missed out, man.
I know, and this is
You
the
missed
thing
out.
is that I came back and Greg's like, you and Lorne Lanning
Oh, my God.
would have been talking each other's ears.
The problem is we're live on camera. We're beaming to the masses via the interwebs.
Right.
I don't think Lorne can say half the stuff we talked about during, mostly because it's a lot. I mean, this man, the depth of his knowledge is vast.
No, there's no
It's
doubt about it.
vast.
And you know, Lorne, you're known as, you know, you've been in this industry a long time. You're a visionary. You have great opinions and interesting opinions, and you're outspoken.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's a very nice way to put it.
No, I know. You're very welcome. So I mean, and he told me, he's like, oh, all the bourbon, all the brown liquor is yours in the house. And,
Yeah.
and then he was like, sorry, some of it's missing. And I was
Yeah,
like,
no.
"That's all right."
Yeah,
We-
sorry
we
about
assumed
that.
it was okay to offer
no,
just a little bit.
Lorne
something.
Lanning, you kidding
Yes.
me? Give him a whole bottle.
Yeah.
What do you think of the show so far? I mean, it's day 3. I'm curious what you're seeing and what
I
you're thinking
mean,
about
to me, in the last couple of years, E3's only been getting a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
And because what are we seeing? You know, for a long time, all we were seeing is bigger, 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 bigger. Now we're seeing, you know, we were just looking at Galaxy, right?
Yeah.
Right there.
Right.
Next to
With No Man's Sky.
next to No Man's Sky, next to a $100 million title. There's Call of Duty, right? So
Yeah.
we weren't seeing that 4 years ago, but we're seeing that more and more now. We're seeing No Man's Sky, another small indie group with a big idea and all of a sudden becoming something big, and we hope they really nail it, you know. But to see the diversity is what's exciting. Now we have the whole other frontier, right? VR, AR. This is, anyone who's really had a good sample knows game changer, right?
Yeah,
For years
absolutely.
we've
I agree.
been living with the screen, and now we're starting to experience inside the screen, and we know really, really powerful stuff coming. Lots of things to learn, lots of confusion. But seeing that and the diversity, you know, who are we seeing here? For the first time I've seen yeah, what's happening, Brian? Brian Fargo, yeah.
Hey, Brian Fargo.
For the first time we're seeing Facebook's got booths here. You know, like everyone's
Right.
trying to get into the industry, which is fabulous. And we have all these competing networks. And what does that do? Creates more opportunity for more younger people or ambitious smaller teams to create new IP and offer to networks some diversity, something, because all these networks that are now competing, there's going to be all the Android TV manufacturers going to be competing against one another. They all need special offerings. That's opportunity for content creators. That's exciting. And right now, this is the widest range of games ever displayed at this show on the widest ranges of devices with the most revolutionary devices. All those things present here. So pretty exciting, pretty big win.
You brought up VR, and I'm interested in
Yeah.
in more like kind of a more in-depth opinion on VR, because I agree, VR is something that everyone seems skeptical of until they use it.
Yeah.
And I was certainly one of those people, as people are tired of hearing the story. A couple years ago, when I played Oculus for the first time here at E3 and played Valkyrie, I was blown away, and it was the only demo in my 9 E3s that I ever asked to play again, right there, because it was so revolutionary. Do you think VR is really the true game changer, and are you worried about how do you show it to someone, because you can't until they put on that headset?
Well, that was interesting. You know, a number of people asked me, they said that at the Sony press event, you know, why didn't they show more VR? And I go, because you can't really show great VR. That's my assumption. They didn't tell me. But I'm just going, well, it's obvious. It doesn't, you don't get it if you're looking at the 20th century flat screen experience, right? So you do have to be there. But once you're there, you know it's over, right? Scale is real. Like, just take a very simple concept. You're going to confront a 200-foot monster. Now, in filmmaking, I need to put someone small in front of that, get on the right camera to give a sense of scale, because you don't have a sense of scale, even with a big movie screen. You've got to put references in there from the real world. Now, you don't have the screen. You're past the screen. You're in the world. Now, a 50, 65-foot Tyrannosaurus is walking towards you. Well, if you want to look at his head, you're up there. And you want to look at his feet, you're down there. And scale is real.
Yeah.
You stand on the edge of the building, you look over the cliff, over the edge. If you've got a fear of heights, you're frozen, man. You know, when I did that demo, the Valve demo, where you're standing in the steampunk city on the edge of the building, 40 stories up, looking down at the street, and the slightest millimeter waver back and forth is like, oh my God. Or I'm in the Morpheus demo where the shark tank, the shark cage, and a great white is swimming by, and I see the little flub of his fat moving, and it's this big going by. Scale is real. That's a real game changer. So you just think about the principles of game design as we know them, throw most of them out, leave them out off on the back table. They're not going to apply in this new space. The simple act of walking up to an edge of a building can be a major, massive confrontational sort of prohibiting block for you as a gamer, whereas behind the screen it was like, well, I got to get over that thing.
Right.
Now it's like, oh my God, this is terrifying.
But do you guys feel like VR though this is it? It's actually going to happen. It's going to catch on. It's not a gimmick. It's not motion. It's not 3D. This is an actual thing that we're going to be living with now as gamers for the rest of our lives.
No doubt.
You think
now,
so?
Yeah.
Because when I first saw it, I mean, it harkens back to the 80s and the early 90s when, TV manufacturers, we just saw the 3D revolution kind of come and go again with TVs.
Now, what we really saw there was TV manufacturers and film studios trying to figure out how do we get people back into the theaters.
Right.
And how do we keep the theaters alive? How do we sell more TVs now that everyone has their big screen HD? What are we going to sell them? Well, what about 3D? And that's what really drove it. It wasn't the audience saying, we want 3D. It was driven by, basically big corporations. They need growth. They need to have people, it's like fashion, right? We need to get you to buy new clothes before your old ones wore out because that's how we survive. So when you look at that on the screen space, that's what brought 3D TVs. That's what made 3D movies. Give you an example. I was just at a place called Kerner Electric. It used to be called Kerner Electric. It's the old ILM up in San Rafael.
Gotcha.
I watched Mad Max there in their theater
a
couple weeks ago. All visual effects guys, all ILM guys, all gray-haired, seasoned visual effects, many Academy Awards. These are the guys that do the best 3D, right? And the guy presenting to us said, we fortunately got this in 3D for you guys to watch, and it's great. How many of you prefer the 3D over the 2D? Not one hand.
No.
Everyone who even makes them is like, just show me a beautiful film, man.
Yep.
I don't want the headset.
Yeah.
You ask the kids, do you want to go see a 3D film? The first few times they did, it's fading. So we see that didn't drive. What's driving VR? It wasn't that the audience said, I really want it. It wasn't said, the industry said, well, we got to figure out how to sell more headsets. And so VR is the answer. What happened was people started dabbling it and other people started feeling it. And that everyone went, whoa. From Mark Zuckerberg to, across the board, when they got in there, when your Silicon Valley VCs get in there and they go, oh my God, everyone realizes it's a game changer. Now, the big question is, when is it viable?
That's my question, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's going to take a while. I think it's so powerful. I think we're going to have lots of little fuzzy issues. We're going to have lots of fuzzy problems. We're going to have YouTube videos of frat boys saying, drink those 2 six-packs and then beat that level, right? And we're going to see projectile vomiting.
That happens. That's our weekend, basically, for the most part.
And we're going to see all these problems. The other thing is AR, right? It's beginning, and it's not going to go away. So the real difference is VR is completely submersive into an alternate reality, and when you're there and you're engaged, this one doesn't exist, right? So that means it has to be a very safe environment. That means it's not as mobile as we would like to think it could be. Then we have AR, which is all about mobility, where Yelp and Google Maps is going to be something where we walk down the street and we're watching we just say, I want to see pizza places that have stores. And people are going to have a 200-foot pizza in hologram flipping above the building.
We're seeing Minority Report in real life, right?
Where it's like
talking to us and saying, hey, eat my pizza here. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to eat your damn pizza until I want to eat your damn pizza.
Exactly. And is that HoloLens or is that Magic Leap or which ones are going to win? Which is going to be the big headsets winning in VR? Not sure. I think, Sony clearly, right? They got the trust of the plastic to the manufacturer. They got the trust of the stores. The trucks are already delivering games, PlayStations, to the stores that are going to sell the VR, right? They already got the network, PSN. It's going to sell the games that work with the VR. Right. Who has the most well-greased avenue into being successful in VR? I think it's Sony, right? That's who I think is going to be a clear winner. Who else is winning? I'm not exactly sure, but I doubt Sony's not going to win. And
did you get a chance to see the HoloLens stuff?
Oh yeah, the HoloLens, no, and I want to.
Yeah, I hear it's ridiculous. I haven't had a chance to go. We tried to go over there yesterday and got shut down because Kanye West was in the building. And no matter where
the American royalty.
I'm no Kanye apparently.
Yeah.
As my wife tells me all the time. But apparently it's amazing, and that's
Yeah.
the technology too. That is
Yeah.
what you're talking about, right? Where it's
Yeah.
not that fully immersive experience.
That's
but
right.
It is augmenting reality in front of you, and
Yeah.
if it can make me feel like Tony Stark, I'm in. I might be in.
You know, we're not even touching on all the porn possibilities. I mean,
Oh, I
the
know.
crazy stuff.
I know.
It's gonna be nuts.
I mean, feel free to touch on
Nuts.
porn because that's how we've been.
Okay, well,
so
let me
far.
tell you this. I just heard a pitch last night where a guy was saying, look, he was selling it to another guy, so I'm reinterpreting the story.
Sure.
But the essence was this. I've been with a lot of women, but I've only felt true love from 3. But in VR, I found the 4th. You know, and he's describing, like, after this happened and after that happened, she looked in my eyes and said, I love you. And he goes, and I felt what I felt the only 3 times ever. Like, you listen to a man's experience.
Right.
And it was in the context of a theoretical discussion about whether or not it's going to happen, what goes. What he was saying is, when you feel that, you don't care.
Yeah,
you know, it's like
doesn't
it's a
matter
whole
when
other
it's
level.
real to you. It's real to you.
And you never were going to feel that on a flat screen, right?
Right.
And so in the landscape of where
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Miller. Thank you. You're doing a great job today. That kid's got promise. Sorry for the interruption.
That's all right. So if you can imagine in the landscape of where, you know, back in the 90s, if you had a pizza place and you didn't have a website, you were on your way to the graveyard.
Right.
Right? The future is you're going to need, just like we needed websites for every business, businesses are going to need AR possibilities where virtual real estate is going to become real. The way that high-rises bought air rights in New York to build over schools that didn't want to be torn down.
Right.
This is going to happen. You walk down the street and you're going to be like, I want to see wherever coffee's on sale, and I want to run my filters the way I would through a search, except that's going to be coming at me in life as I walk down the street. I'll be walking down what looks like a boring street. I switch my channel to see the Yelp ads that are running there, and I'll be seeing, you know, 50-foot dinosaurs over here at the toy store.
Wait, do you think this means that Apple is going to make glasses one day? Where they're going to make sunglasses or some sort of glass? Like, screw the watch.
I think that is inevitable, or it's in contact lenses.
You think contact
Like
lenses?
the
Everyone
future
says contacts.
is contact lenses with chips in there, beaming, you know. It's like, who knows where this goes, right? Technology is getting smaller. Nano computing's right. Quantum computing's like right on the threshold. When that happens, this is, you know, I think the headsets we're looking at today are very interesting, but in 10 years from now, I think they're gonna look like this.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think that's for me. That's when they get more viable for me, right? It's because
Yeah.
I can't fathom relaxing while I have this giant thing hanging off my face and maybe smacking my wife, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, you put something nice and beautifully sleek like this on, and man, you got me.
Yeah,
you got me on
Yeah,
that.
So, Lorne, one of the things I wanted to ask you is you've been outspoken about the AAA model and also a great advocate of the independent model and also the digital distribution model and all these kinds of things. The middle ground has totally fallen away in games, as we've seen with, you know, THQ is always emblematic of that, right? The fall of THQ and these
That's
other.
right.
Yep. How do you feel things are shaping up now? Because we were talking about the $100 million AAAs, and then we're talking about this, you know, Cuphead or something like that that's made on a shoestring budget of maybe less than $1 million.
Yeah.
How are things shaping up in your mind? Are things stable in the games industry right now?
I don't think there's any stability, quite frankly. When I look forward at product, I mean, we started a business once going digital that relies on these networks. We rely on an indie premium pricing, but there's more and more services that are going to be running, you know, 10 cents per minute that they want to pay you instead of. So there's free-to-play companies that are now building titles that are, I was just talking to brand new titles. You've never heard of the IP. They're going to spend 30, 40 million on that for mobile. Right, so it used to be $300,000 if it stuck. Now you're going to be competing against $35 million titles that are free. Right, so free is going to become so like rich, backed by the big boys. How are you going to get in there with something that competes with that when you're a little guy? It's going to be difficult. But here's the thing: is if it were only those big titles, we would never see a No Man's Sky. Right. If it were only that, so let's look around and go, which of these titles came out of indie groups that never would have had the support, that wouldn't have been here 7 years ago? They're actually increasingly big. What's everyone most excited about when we're talking about AR? Minecraft. Something that no publisher really would have backed. No one would have really believed in. He goes out there, kicks ass so drastically that then everyone's trying to, you know, take him on the date, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to get into his business now. Well, that wasn't possible before these trends either. So we live in a cheap world. A very small percentage of the audience believes, I like that. I should support it. If we look at when something's free on Steam or something, or trends of PS Plus offerings free, some of the comments you see people go, why would I ever buy an indie title again? I'm just going to wait till it's free.
Right.
And you're like, well, the reason is because you might want that developer to build more indie titles.
Right.
Duh. How you vote. We've been conditioned in America to think you're smart if you're shaving the best deal and if you're buying at Walmart, right? Well, that's not clearly the definition of smart. The real value, the real power of the individuals and how they spend their money, who they choose to support and who they don't. The beauty today is if someone buys our title, they can know a lot of that money, 70% of that money is coming back to us, and we're going to build more games with it. Right? It's not going to shareholders in Wall Street.
Right,
They're going to do some hedge fund or something,
Right,
just spread across. This is like authentic relationships to customers. What's hard to tell is where is the customer base going to continue to believe in supporting the products as opposed to just wanting the free trend. Right now, personally, I don't play free-to-play games. It's not because I have something against them, but as a player, I find it offensive because I understand the psychological design of how they're trying to figure out my impulse buy pattern and then charge me at every time it starts getting good.
Right.
And I just find that offensive.
Yeah.
I find certain TV shows offensive. Doesn't mean they shouldn't be there, right? But so how do we compete with that in the future? How do you do it when you have character-driven story games that are going to be a more isolated experience? Well, a huge boost of faith in that to me happened on. Monday, I believe, was the Sony press conference, right? Monday morning?
Yep. Yes.
Monday
evening.
Monday evening. And in that, Last Guardian.
Right.
Crowd went wild for it, right? It's 2 characters on a screen. It's a beautiful environment. It's a slow experience. It's an old platforming model done in a new way. But that crowd loved it. So did I. That was one of my favorite things of the show. And when I see that, and as the audience starts on, so that's not going to have, I don't think that's going to have, like traditionally, it's not going to have the billion-dollar audience. But it's going to have a smaller audience that's really passionate about it. That's probably going to wind up with tattoos, because they're that passionate about it.
Yes,
right?
definitely. So in that same conference, though, and this is kind of going back to supporting people like one-to-one with the audience, we also saw Shenmue come out and announce their Kickstarter, which I think got funded that same night,
immediately
basically.
almost,
What are your thoughts on that?
I have it on my browser in the phone. I keep updating every like 2 hours to see where they're at. Do you know where they're at right now?
I don't know where they're at, no.
Yeah, I can find out.
Check,
check
Okay,
out.
check.
That's a fascinating concept, right? Because you're talking about a huge company coming out and saying, hey, come support this title. Now, I have to imagine, I don't know the specifics, and Colin, you can probably speak more to this, but I'm guessing Sony's actually backing them as well, to a certain degree.
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. Is it backing in spirit and saying, we believe in this and we hope you do too, and if you support it, they still retain their autonomy? Or does it get more complicated because now the crowdfund was given to, it's split? I don't know what the logistics are, but I do know that they reached, well, right now, $3.2 million.
Okay, so they shot past their 2 million mark pretty quickly.
Yeah.
2 days,
It's
right?
only been
Well,
2
3
days.
days. 3
3
days.
days.
They'll be just
Well,
fine.
in the time we've been sleeping, I think it's 2 days.
That's one of the things some people were really offended by that Kickstarter being on Sony's stage, and I was like, I totally understand that, and I think it is weird, but I was confused. I'm like, Sony pushed Sports Friends Kickstarter. Amplitude is an IP Sony owns, and they allowed that to be kickstarted. So I'm like, this isn't new. No one's been paying attention when they've been doing it before, and I think this is the first one where they were like, what are you guys doing? And I'm like, I've been saying this for a couple of years. They've been doing this for a while, so I didn't,
So crowdfunding for games is really pre-sales, right? That's really what it is. If you think of that. I mean, we've been kind of crowdfunding, but backwards. We sell them a product, we get the sale, and then we reinvest in product. But we're getting the money after we built the product. Crowdfunding is we get the money before we build the product, but it's really a pre-sale. Now, what is happening is the SEC in the United States just changed the law. Are you familiar with this?
No.
Now, crowdfunding can actually own securities in the company.
Oh,
can actually own shares in equity.
That's a game changer right there.
This is a big, and leaves lots of big questions.
Kevin's telling me that we have to wrap up because you and I have to go over to YouTube.
Oh,
do you want me to go over to YouTube and you can stay for a few more minutes, or what do you want?
What time is it?
I know we have to wrap a bit early because we have to run over to the
other
other
one.
one.
Finish your thought, Lauren, please.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so we got a game-changing crowdfunding model coming too, which allows them to actually own equity in the company. Comes with lots of complications, but the law's just passed enabling it. And there's some big people going to be announcing some big platforms that they're creating to let this happen. How's the crowd going to react to it? Are some of them going to have the reaction you mentioned, or are we going to see that? I think a lot of it comes back to is the power going back to the creator. And I mean that
but I feel
financially.
Like that has to be, right? Because
well, you hope so, right?
One would hope. I mean, if you're telling me that all these people are supporting a game like Shenmue for no return on their investment, and then suddenly you say, hey, if you do this, I'll give you, you might get a 5% or 2% or 3.5% ROI, I'm in. I'm going to do it anyway, right? I funded Super Troopers the other day. I think was the last thing I funded, just because I want to see the movie be made.
Yeah.
You're telling me you're going to give me a check for $5 after that? Dope.
So if
bonus.
Yeah, exactly. So if, so that's like tiering what that money equals for you. But is a trend where big corporate brands can lend their support in spirit. We would like to see these creators do more. Doesn't necessarily fit our model, but if it fits for you, the audience, and you want it, we'll grease the skids and help it get out there. Is that the message that's being sent? I'm not exactly sure. But I think if you have big powers that can provide visibility, and that shines light on something like Shenmue, they just hit their mark. They just exceeded their mark.
Right.
I think they still, the reason they're doing it is because they're doing it on their own. If they got support, like when Sony asked us to be up on the Indie Showcase stage, there was, it wasn't a financial transaction. It wasn't an exclusivity deal. I mean, they did say, look, if we're going to highlight you, give us 30 days. And you're like, we're not going to be able to deliver other SKUs within 30 days anyway.
Right.
So why wouldn't we want your support? And when we do get that support, well, damn, we rely on that when we release a product on the Apple Store now. If we have to rely on our own advertising and marketing, we're not going anywhere. So we got to deliver a good enough product that they want to promote it, right? But they don't own it. They're just going to take a slice of their store. We're so small, it doesn't really matter. But they'll highlight something that's special to the audience. So I think it's all a lot of fuzzy space, huge possibilities. I mean, look at you guys, Patreon. That wasn't around a couple years ago, right? Changes everything. Now you're on your own. But now look where you're sitting.
We've built a kingdom.
Yes.
A kingdom.
And here in your throne, you're being supported by a big brand, but you're still doing Patreon, right?
Yep.
What does that mean? Does that mean you're not in the true spirit? No, I know you guys. I know you're still shooting out of the house. I know you still got that true spirit. But if you get this type of brand support, then you're going to have a wider exposure, and that's only going to help independence. So the key is, can you keep that independent and get that exposure? If you can, then in 10 years from here, all the biggest titles they're going to be coming out of the indie space, probably crowdfunded, probably indie guys, No Man's Sky, things like that, getting out there and then getting the big support, hopefully holding on to their autonomy, unless they cash out. And if they cash out, Minecraft, good for them, right? Good for you, man.
It's always awesome talking to you, man. I'm sorry we have to wrap up.
Thank you. Got it.
I almost forget, I'm even interviewing. I want to
no,
that's
what I'm saying. You have to come back. You have to come back. We have to do another podcast together.
Yeah, let's do it.
It was amazing spending the day with you. Thanks so much for joining us
today. Let's do it.
Everyone else out there, stay tuned. Chloe's coming up next with a special surprise for you. We'll be right back.